Okay, so this is my podcast for the presentation. I'm doing the topic evidence-based teaching, and within that topic, our group divided up into 5 subtopics. So my one is to explain the various high-impact educational practices as evidenced by the effect size data from meta-analysis studies. So when I got this topic, I found it very large and confusing. So within that topic, I decided to divide it up further for myself. So I broke it up into what are the high impact educational practices, then effect size data, and then thirdly meta-analysis studies. So these are the 3 areas that I wish to focus in on during my presentation and podcast. But I'll also stagger them, so I will start off with my high impact educational practice, and then I'll move on to the effect size data, and the meta-analysis could be interlinked with the effect size data because the results are found together. But that's what I plan to do. So at the start, I'll hope to explain what a high impact educational practice is. So high impact educational practices are active learning practices that promote deep learning and by promoting student engagement. So that's what you wish to achieve from high impact educational practice. Then there are several characteristics I found for a high impact educational practice. This can be useful for teachers. So for it to be engaging, the teachers should set performance expectations at appropriate levels to communicate these expectations to students. So the level has to be appropriate so students feel that they do have the opportunity to succeed, but also that it's challenging and not too easy for them. The second one was to encourage students to invest significant and meaningful time and effort to do authentic complex tasks over an extended period of time. So for students to get something out of it, they need to feel like they put something into it. That's my philosophy, that's what I believe. And that this is another characteristic in the high impact educational practice, that teachers need to make students feel like they earned it, like they had to work hard for it. The third characteristic was to add meaningful interactions among students and between faculty and students about their subject matter. So they need to engage and get various knowledge of their subject matter. This is obvious, that's what you're trying to teach them. You should also challenge students' ways of thinking and increase interactions with individuals with life experiences different from their own. Experience with diversity. So as an educator, it's your job to open your students' eyes and show them to the wider world. But you're also trying to open their minds and challenge their ways of thinking and what they always thought was right. And you should also provide frequent, timely and constructive feedback. So if students are going off track, they don't go too far, and it won't take you long to bring them back on and bring them with the rest of the class. So then I'll run through the various high impact educational practices. Now, it's fair to say I won't have time to go through it all, and I don't think it'd be beneficial to go through it all on my presentation, because I think students would lose interest if they just hear a load of educational practices and then saying load numbers for the effect size. So I think I'll only use the ones that I found were most surprising to me when I found the results. So, well, the first one that stands out obviously is homework, and homework only having an effect size of 0.28. I was taken back by this, especially when you think homework is something that you spend the majority of your school time doing, and every evening when you go home, homework is to the forefront of your day. It really shows how surprising it is when rereading was also an educational practice, and this had an effect size of 0.53, which is nearly double what the effect size of homework. So this is something we as educators should bear in mind when we're designing our lesson plans, and not just stick to what we always done as homework, because we're always trying to move forward and improve. So there we can see the students respond nearly twice as better to rereading something as they would to doing homework. So I felt that was important and something to bear in mind. Another one was mobility, mobile touch devices and tablets. This had an effect size of 0.48. So again, this was surprising, as this is something that's nearly outlawed from schools and teachers don't want anything to do with, but I suppose, just sign of changing times and technology advances. So we'll have to move with that and involve it into our classes. Another thing I felt was important from the educational practices was it's our job to promote students in their learning inside the school, but I believe we should also be promoting their learning outside of school. And I seen that television hours can have very damaging effect on the students. So television hours had an effect size of minus 0.18. So I believe this is something that we should try and make students more aware of and help them. They could respond better to it, and they might make them decisions then for themselves. As educators, we must also be aware of what's going on both inside and outside the classroom, with bullying having an effect size of minus 0.2. So as you can see, as we know ourselves, bullying can be very damaging to how a child responds to school and classroom. All them effect sizes I found in the meta-analysis study, and that's something I'll make aware on my presentation day as well. I found the meta-analysis study very beneficial, and it's just the data was there and easy to understand for the effect sizes, showing how it's most and least effective, and that'll be handy for my lesson plans and know what to use. So I also want to give a brief introduction to two educators I found very helpful when I was researching my evidence-based teaching, and they were John Haiti and Robert J. Marzano. They both had interesting ideas that I found very useful. So John Haiti kind of focused on the learning attentions. He believes that they should be clear, success criteria should be obvious, and he was a big fan of peer work. And he believes that, in an interview he said that when students get to the end of a complex task in peers, he believes that this makes students want to excel and do it again. He's also promoted challenging goals. Then Robert J. Marzano, he was online. He was the educational researcher from America, and he was along a similar line to John Haiti, when they had some similar characteristics in both believing that their goals should be achievable, and he believed that teachers should always provide feedback as often as possible, and communicate their high expectations and promote critical thinking among their students. So that's just a brief introduction I want to give on those two chief educators in my 8-minute podcast presentation. But also I plan doing a lesson plan, and within this I'm hoping to do a debate where I ask students questions and hope that they come online and communicate with me. However, I've seen through watching the labs and lectures myself, not many students feel comfortable going and talking across it. So if on the day I feel that no one is coming on, I've incorporated a way to do these questions in the live chat also, by means of getting the students to change their avatar if it's a true or false question. So change the avatar to a thumbs up if it's true and a thumbs down if it's false. So these are just some of the ideas I have for my presentation next week. But again, I'm still